Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. What is going on? Hope everybody's doing well. Saludos a todos. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Grants Podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Continue to follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Grants Podcast. Even though Instagram's been, I don't know what's going on with Instagram, but it's not getting like the views and traction I was getting before. But anyway, keep following, and of course hit the YouTube channel, hit that red subscribe button. However you listen to podcasts, however you watch the podcast, leave review, leave comments, and I definitely reply in the comments. So keep supporting like you always been doing. My guess is that at this time is no stranger to the podcast. Just watch this brother right here, just the elevation from 2020 all the way to now. Justin Gillespie, he's a new dad, by the way. This is the first time he's been on the podcast as a dad. Welcome to the club.
Thank you so much.
How you been?
I've been good. I've been busy, but I've been good. What about you? How's things been with you?
No, just staying busy. You know, hosting my first live event. Shout out to everybody that came through. Just getting ready to do a speaking event in Maryland and coming up soon, and then potentially doing a speaking event in Delaware finally. So it's been hard living in the state, getting any sort of traction for anything. So good stuff coming on the horizon.
Awesome. No, I'm so happy to see how far your show has come too. I've been here, like you said. When did you start the show? Like 2020, I think.
Yeah, January 2020.
Oh, you started it right at the perfect time. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you got a book coming out. You're doing a whole bunch of different things. We're gonna talk some TikTok and regarding business and potential sale. I don't know if the sale's finalized. Trump does so many things that it's like, oh, the sale happened. Oh, I'm doing something else the next day.
Oh my God, I know it's way too hard to keep up with what's going on. So from what I can tell from the last update with TikTok is it has passed with an executive order, and I think he's done something else too, which I can't remember exactly what he did. But everything I'm about to say, y'all, is alleged, but I have my little notes on my phone here to kind of reference. So essentially, what's going to happen with TikTok is it has now been determined that it's going to be kind of just sold off to a bunch of different investors. So originally what was happening was it was going to be sold off to a investor in the US, right? So like one new company was just going to take it over. Everybody was fearful that Meta was going to take that over. From what I can tell, I don't think Meta is very involved with it, or if they are, it's definitely not a priority for them pretty much. I see on this list that Oracle is probably one of the top companies that are going to be taking them over, so that has to do with cybersecurity and things like that. Other companies like Silver Lake, MGA, Michael Dell looks like he's taking that over, who's the founder of Dell Technologies, like the computers and things like that. And then there's other existing ByteDance investors that are interested in, continuing on. So essentially, it's getting broken up across a bunch of different investors. And then ByteDance is still going to hold, I think it's a 20% of what of what they would originally own. So that's kind of what's happening. So it's just getting chopped up, basically.
It's funny because like I had a TikTok, like got rid of it, came back on, got rid of it, and came back on. Now I got rid of it again. Especially I knew Oracle was in talks of purchasing it, and then whatever that executive order took place. Like I was like, all right, that's I don't need government oversight. it's it's what I'm
Mm.
doing. Like whatever. Bye.
I just kind of look at it like this because everyone's worried about like what's going to happen with TikTok. I feel like this with the government. I feel like if they want to find out what they're doing, they can figure it out anyway. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter really where you go on these apps. It doesn't matter where you go on the internet. And I also feel like, I know there's a lot of talks like, well, the FYPs are different and all this. I think that a lot of people really aren't focused on the right things of this, to be honest with you, because, we still have our voices. We can post whatever we want, where we want. We can always assemble. We can always put things online. I think that the bigger issue right now that we're seeing is we're definitely seeing a lot of freedom of speech. I almost said traditions, but not traditions. But freedom of speech policies are just being challenged left and right at the federal level. I don't think they're really worried about us, or else they probably would have already came for this already too. And we have to remember too, Trump comes from the business world too. A lot of CEOs they create a problem to then solve a problem to look really great, right? So
Mm,
you have to remember that this was originally started by him in his previous administration. So, and now it's trickled into here, and now it's, yay, we save TikTok. So to me, this seems like more of like a publicity show than a censorship of freedom of speech, because as we've seen, he's doing that in other bigger avenues anyway.
yeah, especially like I saw a good job posting. I wish it wasn't in person in DC, but no, definitely if you want to get it into TikTok, there's definitely opportunities for employment, and they pay good money. Like, there's a lot of policy, and there's also a mental health job in TikTok too. I'm like, how you hiring folks you don't even know who's gonna buy the company?
Right.
I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from TikTok for a while. So maybe I come back on when they figure their shit out. So who knows? But like in terms of like businesses, and I know people like got clients or have gotten clients from TikTok in terms of a business perspective. Like, you do you think it's gonna affect folks, or people just don't care? They just gonna ride it out? Like, what do you think?
Could you repeat that a little bit? It was kind of breaking up a little bit there.
No, I was saying, do you think like it's gonna affect like the creators who have gone business off of TikTok, or like the pending sale, or do you think it's gonna affect folks in any way?
I think what TikTok is doing right now, just internally before the sales even went into effect or what have you, especially over the last year, I think that's affected more people than anything else, to be honest with you, because TikTok has really turned into QVC, in my opinion. Like every time you pop on TikTok, it's either an ad or someone selling a good. And not that I'm against selling the good, because, I have a book I'm out here selling. I'm trying to sell that on TikTok shop too. But the problem is that a lot of these creators, they have to rely on selling these products online with TikTok now, because how they have things set up, offers that are getting sent to these creators online previously, like through their own sponsor posts or things of that nature, they basically have dwindled, right? So the offers that we were seeing in 2020, they are not seeing them. So a lot of these people are now resorting to selling on the TikTok shop because this is how they made their livelihood. And this is, of course, for people who are relying on their money to be made through sponsored posts. This is why I always tell everybody, especially my therapist, start your private practice, promote it there. Start your own businesses, your own coaching services, things like that. Do that, because the second you start relying on like sponsored posts and those type of jobs, they don't increase in value. Like they do not increase in salary, and that's been a true thing since 2006, when YouTube and whatnot was starting to come off the bat. Like they give you high amounts, and then they over years they just start dwindling, right? And that's just going to be the case of any social media app, right? So if you're chasing that type of money, you need to do that almost as a secondary set of income rather than, your primary, because it will always dwindle, unfortunately.
No, that's good advice. No, you mentioned your book. What's it called? What's it about?
Yeah, so I have my new book coming out. It's coming out on Black Friday, November 28th. We're actually doing the release party a little bit early on the 21st. So if anybody is in the Metro Detroit area, make sure you guys go to my links on my socials and sign up for that, because we're having an in-person party for that. But it's called Think Later and Live Now: Three Steps for Overthinkers to Achieve Success. And basically, this book has my framework of therapy and coaching and consulting and all that kind of stuff over the last 10 years that I've done. And I have this method in the book. It's called the PAM method. And the reason we call it the PAM method is because number one, I need an acronym that worked. And number two, I've never met a Pam I've never liked in my life. We're looking at Pamela Anderson. We're looking at Pamela Rose Martinez, that you may know as Bailey in the WWE, right? I've never met a Pam I've never liked in my real life and whatever yet. So, we'll see. But, we needed something to fit, and so it fit. And basically, the three steps of this method are pause. and then the A is two part. So it's affirm and aloud. So aloud or out loud. And then move. And essentially what we're doing is we're pausing our entire body, and this ultimately resets our nervous system, resets our entire being, right? We speak things out loud, whether it's positive affirmations, neutral words of feedback, right? Or some sort of clear direction that we're giving ourselves that's simple. And then we move with intention. And that's essentially it. And the idea behind this method is it is a way to help you with overthinking, rumination. You're feeling stuck. You can't really get out of task paralysis. You're trying to get that thing done that you just can't seem to figure out how to get done, and you want to achieve things in your life, big or small, essentially. Um, and so, anyway, so my book talks about the method, but it goes into the science of the method too. So it goes beyond like the affirmation work and the things we know from psychology. Because I'm somebody who I've always been like a why person. Like, why does that work? And I've always wanted to like investigate things a little bit further. So it goes into like the biology side of things, and it goes into like the neuroscience of spoken word and breathing, and like why all these little things that we do in like the therapy world, like why they actually work, but from like a biological neuroscience lens.
I like that. How, how did you come with that concept, and how was it like uh writing the book?
The book itself, it was cool actually. So I started formally doing the PAM method just because these were all coping skills I've learned through the years by practicing things like CBT, DBT, getting, talking with other therapists, doing somatic work, things like that, right? And so all these little skills just, seem to be very helpful, right? Being able to just get people to pause and sit, speak positive words or clear things to themselves without shame or excessive guilt, right? And then movement came just because when I first started my career, I actually did a lot of exercise therapy for a few years. So I would incorporate my talk therapy along with exercise and movement, especially with kids. They used to love this a lot. And I've actually gotten into doing that again recently with this too. But all these little coping skills and strategies that we teach in therapy, I was just noticing that these are the ones that seems to work best with my clients. And I've worked in a variety of settings at this point. So I've worked in the addiction world. I've worked with neurodivergent individuals, right? That's especially what I'm doing now with the ADHD work I do, right? I've worked in juvenile detention settings, and a lot of these skills that I do and talk about in the book, right? Whether it be mindset work or the breathing work or things of that nature, these are the skills that I've seen really great success for across the board. But especially when it comes to excessive worry, anxiety, I kind of throw anger in there too, just because when I think of anxiety, I think of it as like an upper, right? It keeps you alert. Anger is kind of an alert
Mhm.
emotion. So anger, I've seen it work for individuals too. Frustration, all those kind of areas. Like I've seen this method work for people.
That's very sounds like a very informative book. Something I'm gonna have to check it out myself.
It was really fun writing it just because I've always looked at myself as a student at heart. So like a lot of the book was more so, it wasn't me like saying like, this is me knowing all of these things. It more of was like a study book for me because I was very curious to know, like, I know all these things work. I've seen them work. I've seen
Mm,
evidence-based research that says they work, but from like the psychology and like the behavioral health side where like, actions are more so looked at. And I just want to know like, well, why further does this work? Like it shows it works. Why does this work?
mm,
And so that's how we got into the biology and the neuroscience sort of stuff. And I will tell you right now, I got a C in biology, and I only got a C in biology because I basically told my professor at community college, I only need this class so I can get to the social work program. And so I probably was going to fail biology actually. And so it really was something that me going into this, I was very curious about, and I've always liked, science, but I haven't always had the ability to understand it, and I never had the time to get it to where I could understand it, right? Because there was always some sort of time pressure on it, whether it be a test or an assignment or whatever going on. So this was kind of like my little project over the last like almost year of like, oh, I can actually just research this now on my own time
mm.
and, you know, put it together in a book. So the book reads like very motivational, but it's also kind of like a research paper too, like for school. So it reads very simple for people.
Mm. No, simple it is good because you don't want to make it too complicated and be boring and all right. people are not going to read it.
No. Well, the reason I went into this too is because I firmly believe that if you understand why something works, you're more motivated to do it, right? I can't tell you
Mm,
how many people who I've worked with over the years where if I did get them to be motivated to do it like it worked, but a lot of these individuals, they wouldn't want to do any of these coping skills consistently. They wouldn't want to do them, whether it was actively they didn't want to, because some people have the complex of, oh, why do I need this to just whatever, right? Why do I
mm,
need this tool to feel this way or get my life going or whatever, right? Or sometimes it was just forgetfulness, like, oh, I just always forget it's in the back of my mind, right? But if you know like why something worked, like inside and out, you're probably more motivated to actually do it. A lot of people, when we go to school, we're not motivated to do algebra. I'm talking to a social worker because we don't go to school for math usually. But like, there are engineers that are motivated to learn algebra because they understand why the equations they're doing works and what they're going to eventually use them for. So if
mm.
you understand why you're doing these skills and why you're doing these things, you probably have a more emotional incentive to actually do them.
No, that does make a make a lot of sense. Um, how did you find like the time to write, like I said, as a new dad and everything else that you're doing? Like, how did you break down your time in order to do the things that you're doing?
Well, I personally just really like writing, and since I've wrote my first book, I fell back in love with writing. When I was in school back in like middle school and high school, I would write all sorts of things. Like I would just get these big notebooks and I would, like, I'm talking 100 page, 200 page notebooks, and I would just start handwriting stories of like fiction or nonfiction or things I was just kind of looking up or just different stories I would kind of put together. And then I would also there was at one point I was tired of kind of like there were things on TV that I was just tired of like watching. So I would actually write like my own TV scripts of different shows that I would just read to myself because I was bored in school. But I've just always liked writing. And so to me, now that I've kind of gotten back into it in my adult life, it feels really therapeutic. And I love now that I can also do it in a way that's faster, just because since, technology's advanced a little bit more than I can actually speak the book out loud because with my typing, I'm kind of always going back and forth, things like that. So I actually voice note my books when I write them just because I just find them, way easier. And that's how I do them. I outline the books and then I just speak them, and that's pretty much the process. Other than you get into the nitty gritty of editing and things of that nature. Um, but yeah, that's how I found the time. I love writing so much, and I'm glad I found it again.
No, that's great that you're able to do that. And yeah, there's so many tools out there that you write a book in a couple of days, and especially with AI now, you definitely speed up the process even more. So,
I actually have a whole chapter on AI use actually in my book too.
oh, nice.
hmm Well, because with AI, right? I think people with AI, they're very polarized with it, right? They're very don't do it at all, or they're very like it's gonna ultimately solve everything, right? So, and I'm very transparent in the book. Like I used AI as an assistance for editing the book. So what I do is I voice note the book. I go through everything how I want to say. I like take the structure of it. And there's a prompt that I specifically use for AI. And I said, I want you to keep every word I'm saying, but only fix proofreading and maybe minor grammar issues, basically, right? So everything that's in the book, it's kind of like what I think, what I say, right? But I also talk about in the book how AI can deteriorate our ability to critically think, to task
Mm.
initiate, right? But it can also enhance those things too if we're using, the critical thinking skills in the beginning as well too. And then I also have an editor that I work with too, so they also go through that book right after too, and they go through stuff too.
It's funny you mentioned that piece, like the critical thinking aspect in terms of AI, and recently went to a AI event in New York, and it definitely touched on still need human beings in order to do the critical thinking
We
aspects,
do.
especially with all things like ethics, and obviously the our code of ethics plays in social work plays a huge part in that, and potentially looking to use those ethic skills that we learned in doing some tech work in AI.
Absolutely.
So the book's coming out Black Friday. Look, what have you thought of goals for 2026 at all yet?
Well, I want so my goals for 2026 kind of got carried over into 2025 because I feel like it's really funny with this book too, right? Because I've been working on it for a year, and then what ended up happening with this book was I had like a weird side quest. Like I was writing the book and I was kind of like not getting bored of the book, but I was like, I need to do something different with this book. And so I ended up taking a detour with it. And so I actually wrote another book that was supposed to come out in June. And it did come out, but the release just did not work at all for me. But that book is actually called Life Has No Purpose and Then You Die, How to Stop Overthinking So You Can Start Living. And so that book I had a blast writing that book too, but that book, I kid you not, was written in like a hyper focused, like I think I wrote that book in like a whole weekend, actually. I'm not kidding. Because it just combined a lot of my, loves of psychology, but also with philosophy, death positivity. And it goes into things like the fear of death and legacy and all these type of things. It's basically what I call a cognitively reframed acid trip that then just brings you back to like what was really meaningful to you, which is like mindfulness, being in the moment, all those kind of things, right? But I loved writing that book, and it also was like the first initial thing that kind of got me going to wrap up this book that I was doing. Because again, this was supposed to be book two. We went on the detour, and then we were just like, okay, we're just going to release this book probably next year or something like that. But then everything in life just kind of hit between May and like even the last like probably the last month or two, or not the last month or two, but the month or two before, like everything just kind of hit between my daughter being born early and just a bunch of different personal things kind of happening in my life. And it was just this weird storm that just threw off that release. And in a weird way, like I was kind of okay with it because it to me was an opportunity to remind myself like I can just write for fun. And people still actually surprisingly bought that book to be so real. So it's a cool little philosophical talking point I now have. And I have it in my little resource library now. Um, but yeah, my plans for 2025 got carried over to 2026 because of all that. So right now we're planning a book tour for 2026. That was supposed to happen in 2025, but that's okay. And I'm actually glad it happened that way because this is actually the book I want to tour with more.
That's good. Exciting, a book tour. You
A,
coming to
a
East
self
Coast?
a self-released book tour, mind you, a self-independent book tour, which is fun to plan. So
You coming to East Coast?
I really want to. I really want to do New York, and Philly for the last year has been a big following point on my stuff, so I definitely would love to come there. Um, but man, I really want to do some local stuff in Detroit too. Like finally, like
Mm,
there's just been stuff here that I really want to do more of here, and then I'm definitely going to Chicago too because Chicago is one of my favorite cities. We're actually getting ready to go in October at the end of October here for Halloween weekend. So
awesome. Speaking of Detroit, I know you're not other than wrestling, you're not a big sports person, but the Tigers, as of this recording, is the playoffs. So
oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. I love that. So this is what's funny. I've been so busy. I haven't I've had time to keep up with anything like sports related really too much. Like I barely keep up with WWE right now because I've been so busy. I didn't even know they made it to the playoffs, which is nice because like I don't think they made it forever. Or if they do, it's like I don't know. It feels nice.
yeah, I know a past podcast guest. He's Seattle fan, and the Tigers are playing Seattle. So like, I sent them the picture with the head, like "Go Tigers,"
Oh my God, that's
just to
so
bust the
funny.
chops.
That is so funny. You actually need to come to Detroit. Did you know that all of our stadiums are like within like a mile or less of each other? Like they're all in the same like vicinity.
Yeah, I know. There's been a couple opportunities to go out there. I definitely need to go go somewhere in the Midwest.
We had at one point, actually, when SummerSlam came to Detroit. So SummerSlam was there, and then they had the Tigers playing that night too. And then on top of it, I think she ended up canceling or something like that because she was sick or something. But Madonna was coming to the other arena too. So it was just gonna be three things happening that night that were like huge. And like I'm so glad she canceled because that would have been it was already horrible traffic with SummerSlam. Like wrestling took over Detroit that day. Like the streets were flooded with wrestling fans. I was very proud as a local Metro Detroiter to see that.
No, that especially with all these events that they do at these stadiums is crazy how in this economy, and I know a lot of people come overseas or different countries all over the world, but like the amount of money that people are spending for these tickets, I'm like, where are you getting this money from? Or
I know.
how much debt you're going into because
Oh my gosh, it's wild.
it's insane. And where can people reach out to you?
They can reach out to me on Instagram or TikTok. So that's going to be at ADHD therapist underscore J, spelled Jay. If you also want to learn more about my private practice for ADHD, you can go to www.superior-center.com and you can check us out there too.
Awesome. Always great talking to you. Um, make sure you get enough sleep, with the baby.
Absolutely.
Good luck with the book.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love being here.